two.
Hello, everybody. Hey, it is Saturday, October 4th, and I'm wishing you all as well of a Saturday as can be. My name is Shaquana of the Sage Dragon Book Show, brought to you by the Real HD Network. Shout out to my co producer. I hope you all are doing well. I'm really excited about today's episode. And we came on a different time. I usually go on Saturdays at 11 o'clock. And I do them live because I'm hoping to eventually build community around books as well as different topics that the books are about. But if most people remember that I'm on at 11, so it may be that we don't get as much participation today. That's okay. I'm still really excited about talking about these great books. And if you're new here, my name is Shaquana. I'm the host of Dragon Book Show, where I promote thought-provoking books. And if you are interested in reading, you like fiction, you like memoirs, self-help, just all sorts of genres I delve into. Give us a like, share with the book lovers in your life, and librarians and bookstore owners and all that good stuff. All right. So today is we have been celebrating the Hispanic culture through the Hispanic diaspora, writers of the various backgrounds. And so the last several weeks, I have been reviewing books that I read by um, men writers. First, I did Latina women writers that I really like their books. I covered two books last week, and today we continue with looking at some books by two great books that I read. Totally different books, coming at it from different angles, but there's something that they have in common in that they both harness the wisdom of shamans, Mexican shamans, and I'll get into that. But before we do that, we're going to get into our weekly book news segment. So, book news of the week. This weekend is the Black Book Bash that's going on down in Jacksonville, Florida. And how I even found out about this was there was a little bit of a controversy going on with the people who organized the book festival, um, claiming that Publix was supposed to give them a sponsorship and had agreed to give it to them and then pulled out at the last minute because they don't want to align with the whole DEI backlash. So many people are upset about that. I read a couple of articles that people are even trying to boycott Publix, but I also read that Publix is saying they never said for sure that they were going to do the sponsorship. So I couldn't really tell what was going on there. I do think that if they said it, they should honor it. If especially if nothing changed, and if the book organizers definitely have proof that they were going to do it, I think they should show that to the public. However, either way, the book festival itself looks great. And I'm like, wow, I wish I would have known about it and I might have tried to go. But it's if you go to their website, you could see the schedule of all these different authors that are going to be there. Let's see. I think Kim Fields, I saw Dr. Ian Smith, who writes a lot of books on how Black people can improve their health and well being. Just a ton of, also, they're going to have like Black storytelling, and it looks like it's like a cultural, like a family reunion. I like how I'm starting to see more events where books are the center, but the gathering goes beyond that. I think that that's really cool. So I'm sorry I missed it, and I hope they're having a great time down there this weekend. And perhaps I can get to another one in the future. Okay, so today is an episode I'm calling Diamonds for the Soul, Wisdom from the Shamans, a review of the Four Agreements and the Universal Tone. Those are the two books that we're going to review. The Four Agreements is written by Don Miguel Ruiz, and the Universal Tone by the rock star Carlos Santana. So we're going to start with Don Miguel Ruiz, author spotlight. He was, hold on a moment, I got so many things open. He was born in Tijuana, Mexico in 1952, became a doctor before pivoting to become a spiritual leader, infusing the Toltec tradition with modern science. And so he's the author of a wisdom series in which the Four Agreements is one. And it's the Four Agreements, the Mastery of Love, the Voice of Knowledge, and the Four Agreements companion book. He's highly respected throughout the world. He has received numerous recognitions, including a U.S. Air Force Challenge coin. He received the 2023 Latino Spirit Award. So he's very well known. And a lot of people know this book, but I wanted to cover it because there are some people who may not. And then there's also been an evolution of the book, which I'll discuss later. And I also think sometimes it's nice to just revisit stuff. So let's get into it. So, first, how I came across this book. I used to live in Baltimore, Maryland, and I was working at a clinic, Greater Baltimore Medical Center, back in 2002. And I really remember it because it was the first job that I got when I moved to Maryland. I met a nurse down there who told me that she suffered from depression for years, and really, it was really crushing to her spirit. And she said that she started a healing journey and read the Four Agreements. And she said it really cured her. I was like, wow, that's saying a lot that a book could do that. She said once she read the book and started applying a lot of the lessons in her life, it was a huge part of her healing. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go get this book. So I went and I got it and I read it. And I also have the cards. And I have talked about it and revisited it for many years. As a matter of fact, um, I remember being on a job interview, being asked the question, and I drew from the Four Agreements. I drew from them as part of my interview. Hold on a moment. I'm going to just turn my camera off. I'm still with you guys, but I just have to get a paper towel because the lights are very hot. Okay, I'm back. The lights are very hot and they've got me they got me sweating over here. Okay. All right, so I'm back. Yeah, so let's get into these Four Agreements. So the book was published in 1997, New York Times bestseller, 53 languages, millions of copies sold. Like I said, a lot of people know about the book. And these agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personal, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And we're going to dive into these agreements. And first, you know us, we've got a clip to show. This is from Saren Says. She's a like a content creator. She makes content around like self-help. And I thought she had a really great intro of the book. So we're going to show that now.
Today I am reviewing The Four Agreements, which is the second book on my list of 17 books that I am reading, reviewing, and resourcing in this year, 2017. So The Four Agreements, I first found out about this book when my mom actually gifted me with the fifth agreement, which is a book that was written after this, like a sequel book. And in the book, it was talking about this Toltec wisdom that the Four Agreements held, and I started doing research on the book and found that it was like world renowned. And Don Miguel Ruiz, who is the author of it, is like a spiritualist and someone who people look up to. So I said, okay, gotta read the Four Agreements. It was another book that everyone was telling me that I should read and that a few of my mentors told me that they gained from. So I decided that I was going to jump forward and read the Four Agreements. So the book is broken up into chapters. It starts by talking about Toltec wisdom. The Toltec people are native to the Mexico region, and the author, Don Miguel Ruiz, is a descendant of the indigenous Toltec people of the region who passed down all of these ideas and concepts that they use to fuel and sustain their civilization and society hundreds of years ago. And it talks about the importance of looking at the self and understanding how the self connects to other aspects of our world, the heavens, hell, the people that we are coming in contact with always, and basically how spirituality just flows in and out of everything that we see, everything that we do, everything that we are. So the book is definitely a spiritual book. It's written in the second person, which is interesting. So it says, you will experience this, and this is what you will encounter, and this is how you feel, or this is what you might feel. So it's an interesting way to read it. It kind of feels like a self-help book, but it's written with very basic language, and it talks about very simple things that you can do to improve your life. So at first it's like you read it.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so that was Saren's given a small, brief summary of the book, and you can check out her page because she had some good points on it, but I didn't want to give spoilers, so I didn't want to go too far with it. So let's get into all of these agreements. Agreement one: be impeccable with your word. And this is the first one, the first and most important of the four agreements, as Don Miguel says. The word is your power, your creation. The other direction is misuse of the word, where the word can destroy everything around you. So a lot of that is, he provides a lot of evidence of how critical it is about how we watch what we say, how we speak to ourselves and talk, and how we speak to others and about others. So, a lot of times in life, there's so much conflict, and conflict is not negative, but there's a lot of unnecessary conflict and strife sometimes because of the way we are communicating with one another. So, that learning how to be impeccable, things like watching what you say, excuse me, because I don't want to come off like I'm trying to say censor yourself. really what he's saying is say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself and to gossip. And use the power of the word in the direction of truth and love. And I have found that to be beneficial when I'm being in business and family and my friendships and my relationship. If I'm speaking life, if I'm speaking words of truth and love, being mindful of other people's feelings, making sure that I'm saying things that are, you know, I don't know, hopefully helpful. I also came across this woman, Tracy Crossley. She's like a therapist. And she did a breakdown of her version of the first agreement. And she said, speak your truth. And I'm including that because this isn't meant to be like a Pollyanna-ish version of yourself. It's actually a, a guide to help you live as authentic as you can. Because being honest and speaking is part of your authenticity. So that's the message she's talking about is emotional freedom and the key to intimacy and acceptance and living an authentic life is she she says she has a podcast and she drops F bombs. So that's her way of she talks naturally. She says she doesn't do it to be manipulative or use it as shock value. It's just how she naturally talks. And she found that talking in her natural way is how she is impeccable with her speech. And so there's different ways to approach it. If you read the lesson, you can think about your life and how can you use words to be authentic. This is another message that I think connects with some recent um, recent buzz around being kind versus being nice. And being kind is more of an authentic way of being, kind to your fellow human being versus being nice, which is like that phony baloney stuff. So it's similar. You don't have to go around just saying things to be polite. I try not to do that. I just won't say anything. But if I really want to give a compliment, it's sincere. Like some people might think, wow, she's nice. She gives me compliments. If I feel like it, if it's a sincere thing, there's people who refuse to give a compliment. And that's not cool. There's also people who don't know how to take a compliment. You got to learn how to take a compliment. Thank you. So, there's all sorts of ways that you can be impeccable with your speech. There's also the advice around gossip. And I have a clip that I want to show from a channel that I like. It's called I Never Knew TV. And they have a podcast, The Dread and the Bald. And they did a whole segment on gossiping. So I'm going to show a couple of clips from that, or play rather.
Well, let me hear you say mountain, mountain, mountain.
Fire, what you saying? Give thanks to life, you know?
Serious thing. We are here again, Ballhead and the Dread Podcast. We give thanks for everyone tuning in from those times to now. Fire, what reason about today?
Today we're reasoning about gossiping, right? I feel like gossiping is really plaguing our community, and we really need to do something about this whole gossiping thing, because it's leading to too much unprogressive mindset and too much grown adults who sit down and waste them time and focus on gossiping, whether it be just directly talking about somebody or consuming it online, to even with regards to social media, constant gossiping. And we don't understand how much the whole gossiping thing just damage our brain cells, and it lead towards a whole chaotic culture where we help for farm every single day.
Fire, you know people not gonna like this reasoning, right?
Of course not.
We just gotta put that out there, because Fire, this gossiping thing is wild.
It's out of control right now, for real.
All right, I don't even want to get to the brain. I don't even want to get to the neurological issue. Fire, I just want to get to the violence that come from this gossiping. A lot of the violence and arguments that take place is because of gossiping. It's not kids gossiping. You know, I told my daughter the other day, she was telling me something, right? It was kind of gossipy, tell you the truth. So I said, listen, I told her straight, I said, listen, if you're not going to tell that young lady that to her face, make sure you don't tell nobody that, bro. So if you tell her to her face already, then you tell somebody and they go carry it back to her, she's going to say, yo, she told me that already. But don't put yourself in a position where people can't do that. I learned that game early, Fire, right? Yeah. So if it's such a disgust I have a particular person, I'll check them and reason with them about it. So if I tell the next person and they go carry that back to the person, like, bro, you told me that.
Yeah, but most people have the guts to do that.
That's my rule of thumb, and it just saves you from mix up. The next thing is, Fire, you need to stay out of people's business.
I think we're stopping there, because that's the whole being in people's business topic. That's a whole nother topic. But really, the gossip. And I don't know if I have any listeners out there that want to chime in on this. If not now, please in the future. I think there's too much gossip going on, and it's really not healthy for us. And we do spend, as a collective, this week we spent a lot of time consumed with the lives of celebrities and public figures who know nothing about us, and they don't care about us. And yet our lives, there's so much that's needed, so, okay, you like a little gossip, everyone does it to an extent, but I think it needs to be curbed. One thing that also is a pet peeve of mine is, even when I'm in the workplace, I prefer, if like a couple of weeks ago, it was a colleague of mine who told me that someone had said something about her in a project. And I said, why didn't she just come and talk to you about it? Because sometimes I don't, there's all these layers and hierarchies, and someone will talk to a manager, and then the manager would talk to the other person's manager about something that I think the two people could have worked out. Like, I'm a grown woman, we're grown, we're adults. Let's talk this through and figure it out. So how do you guys feel about that? There's also the personal pieces of it. I mean, I just had a situation recently where someone texted me about another family member that was gossiping and, saying some stuff, and it was inaccurate. They didn't have all the information right. They were kind of jumping to some conclusions, and I didn't really feed into it. But I just know that it causes a lot of ruckus, and also it brings down your reputation and brings down your vibration and your frequency and your ability to be productive. So that's a big reason why I think we need to nix the gossiping or minimize it. So if you gossip, try to just cut down on it a little bit and talk about some other things. Most of the time when I'm talking with people, I'm so into I love to hear about goals or interesting things people are doing, or you know, all kind of stuff. What you watching, where you traveling, where you going, what you want to do, things like that, as opposed to gossiping about other people. You know, sometimes people feel like they need a safe space, but it depends on, that's different, you know, depending on how the conversation is. So anyway, the four agreements, that first agreement is watch, you know, how you talk. I also think that growing up, as I was raising my children, I tried not to gossip about other people around them and have adult conversations around them, because it wasn't their business and it wasn't really appropriate for them to be hearing me. I shouldn't be doing that anyway, but I don't want to be disparaging a relative or a friend or a associate or someone in front of my kids, and then on the same note expecting them to have a respect for that person. So, you know, those are things that are counter our unity. Any comments out there about gossiping? I think there's another clip that I want to show, because it's the same video, but the dread makes an interesting point, and I want to
Russian, but
see what people think about this.
it stops people from doing stuff that they should be doing because they think everyone is tearing people down and talking about like they're talking about others. And in reality, that may not necessarily be the case.
So this is all most people might think it's just random, but this is all a plan, This is a design, For Gossip Plague the community. One, it's a whole marketing effort led by all of these magazines and traditional media people, where we know they brought about gossip to sell magazines and to sell whatever product they have, or any series they have, and all of that stuff, right? So they market gossip to the people. Now, remember, our culture is a unique culture where it's entertainment led. So the culture led by entertainment. Now, imagine now, gossip and entertainment there's a crossroad where gossip and entertainment has now met each other, and it's synonymous to the same thing. So when we think about gossip, we think about entertainment, because who do you hear the most gossip about? Entertainers.
Facts.
Like me, find it really, really strange. If a man get up, if a woman get up. Just the other day, somebody I bring a conversation to me, and midway, as the first thing roll off them tongue, me have to tell them to stop it. Stop. No, stop. Like seriously, it's very annoying. Stop. I don't want to get up out of my bed and somebody call me. Yo, you hear about Vibes Cartel? You hear about Chance Stamp? No, you throw off my brain.
Yeah.
Because you see, the way how my brain works is not about focusing on that outward thing, that whole gossip thing, like all of this is like the mindset of the people and like gone. And these are adults I'm telling you about, not even like grown people. So now you have 8 hours that you spend sleeping. You have that commute that you spend going to work, and that coming back from work, all of that now. And when you think about the whole life, when you think about all of that now, and plus you're adding gossip in the midst of that, and then we have the audacity for complain that there's nothing going on, you can't better yourself and all of this thing, and it's the way the system put you down. Yeah, the system designed the concept of the gossip, but you are the one who feed into this narrative, and you consume this narrative and help become the actual agent of the gossip and the propaganda.
Carrying the news, Fire, 2 things I want to say. One,
so the
majority of our conversations,
the clip, you can watch more of that whole episode by going to I Never Knew TV and typing it in. But the point that he made about gossip is now a huge commodity. So back the 80s and the 90s, I remember growing up, you did have National Enquirer magazine, and you had the rags in the grocery store. And so it was always a part of the economy of entertainment. But I'm going to be covering Carlos Santana in a moment. And in the 70s and the 80s, he talks about, the 60s, 70s, all these bands. And we know that, like, in the music scene, there were bands and venues and places that artists could go. So it was a whole bunch of different outlets for artistry and entertainment, which was economies. Because if there's bands, they need places to go to practice, they need places to go to perform. There's people that are running the venues, there's promoters. If gossip is now the commodity, like where that's what we pay for and that's what we would entertain us all day long, it's breeding sub economies. I mean, I can't believe this the foolishness that's on this week about these different women rappers that are going at and they're gossiping about each other and this one and that. It's like that's now the economy. So I think we got to like stop it so that it doesn't continue to spread, because this is not natural. It's one thing to have a small amount of it happening, but it shouldn't be the main form of our entertainment. It shouldn't be like the main part of our culture. It's just gossip. So, and it's not being impeccable with your words. So, any comments out there? If you look listening in the future, leave a comment about how you think we can stop the spread of gossip. And my last question that I'm going to ask is, when is a time recently when you were proud of how you spoke authentically to yourself or to anyone else? All right, so we're going to move on to agreement number 2. Don't take anything personal. What others people say or do actually has nothing to do with us. That's a really hard thing to embrace. And these principles are, I'm saying them like they're nothing, like be impeccable with your word. But I mean, if you really think about it, that practice in itself is powerful. It takes work to not say things that you don't mean, or not to say cruel things, or the first thing that comes out your mouth, or to not be courageous enough to address a conflict with someone, or to not gossip or spread gossip. It takes work. So similar to this, not taking anything personal. And the perspective is that we're all living our own reality. And most of the time, when we're reacting in the world, it's not about other people. And if something is done, most of the time it's not really about, it's not something that's meant to be against you. And so it's easier if you can have that perspective of not taking something personal, because we make that assumption that we're the only ones in the world and we're trying to impose it. So it's being less egocentric about that. I do have a video to show that gets into this message more. I think it's from Chuck Chapman. He's a therapist, and he has a video. He has a page, and I'm going to play some of his wisdom around this principle.
He reveals the secret of personal freedom and inner peace. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into agreement number 2. Don't take anything personal. Imagine a life where the opinions and the actions of others no longer had any power to shake your inner peace. A life where you can navigate criticism with confidence and grace. Today, we're going to talk about 3 steps that you can implement to stop taking things personally. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Step number 1. Recognize the triggers. Begin identifying the situations, the words, and the actions that tend to trigger your sensitivity to criticism. Think of a time when you were triggered to feeling upset by somebody else's words or actions. Where were you? What were you doing? What was going on? If you can recognize the triggers, you can become more aware of when you're at risk for taking things personally. For example, when I'm hungry and tired, I tend to take things more personally. My feelings get hurt, especially if I think somebody's judging me. See, there's 3 triggers right there. I'm tired, I'm hungry, and I think somebody's judging me. By identifying these triggers, I'm better able to set boundaries for myself. And if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I know it's not a good time for me to maybe engage in a discussion about how others are maybe judging my performance, because I'm less likely to see their words as feedback and not criticism. So take some time and reflect on what some of your triggers are. It might be particular people, places, or things, and you've probably given them power. See, when we give our power away to somebody else, we lose our ability to control ourselves. For example, let's say somebody said, "Hey, you're green." Now, you probably wouldn't get offended, because why? Well, you know it's not true. So if someone says something to you and you take offense, well, basically what you're doing is you're telling them that it's true, and you're validating their assumptions and their judgments. Instead, all you have to do is say something like, "Yeah, I don't buy that." It's a simple thing, but it's a great way to maintain your personal power.
Yeah, so you can get more tidbits from Chuck Chapman's page. I'm trying to say where I'm sourcing some of these supplemental videos from. But I thought that was helpful because, I want to give goodies. And I do recognize and I practice trying to identify triggers. Hunger is one for me too. But also I think another trigger I realized is overpacking my schedule. Sometimes it feels like, oh yeah, I could do this and this. And then the day of it, it's like, oh my goodness, why did I take on all of that? And then it makes me even more sensitive to things. So I need a lot of space, and it helps me to live more peacefully. But I get a journal and write down your triggers to figure it out. And that can help you not take things too personal. Nobody likes to be, criticized or disrespected or mistreated. So you're valid, what you feel is valid, but I think it's important to identify it. So I'm throwing this out there for the future, something you could take with you. Can you identify triggers that make you feel vulnerable to criticism? Agreement number 3 is don't make assumptions. Assumptions are nothing more than lies that we are telling ourselves. This creates a big drama for nothing because we don't really know if something is true or not. And that's by Don Miguel, that particular quote. So I think that aligns very closely with the whole, don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. Don't assume. The assumption thing is huge. I was just talking to a family member about this one as well. And she was saying to me, wow, she admitted that quite a few members of our extended family are very judgmental. And I've been around a lot of people in my life growing up that are very judgmental. So, and then, like the gossipy thing, and the gossip and the judgment goes hand in hand. And what that does is it prevents people from feeling like they can practice one, which is be impeccable with your speech. Because say I'm struggling with something, and I don't feel supported by people, if I don't feel like I have a community that can support me through a particular challenge that I'm dealing with, am I going to be impeccable and talk about it openly and honestly if I don't feel like I can do that? No. And that's what's going on too. It's causing a lot of people to struggle in silence. So we do need to find ways to be a little more loving with one another when it comes to um, life. But also the making assumptions, that's one that I think could help us. Part of the reason why I wanted to revisit these principles was to look at them myself, because, like I said, I read the book in the early 2000s. And since then, technology has taken an even stronger role in all of our lives, which has also made it that these things like assumptions can happen. If you are texting someone and they're in the middle of something and they're responding hastily and they don't provide more nuance and context to the message, do you assume? Is it somebody posts something on social, and they're sharing something about themselves, and maybe you just had a debate with them? Do you automatically think that that was about you? It created a lot of room, the technology and the social media, for us to make even more assumptions about things instead of just going directly and trying to get clarity, or accepting the fact that we're not going to always have the full pieces of the puzzle. What do you think, producer, about making assumptions?
Yeah, it's old as time,
Uh-huh.
and I really liked what the uh, brother, the Dread, was that his name in the
Yeah.
earlier videos? I
Hmm.
really like what he said, and I don't think enough people pay attention to how social media has made gossip a form of entertainment,
Yeah.
and they don't when they design chat rooms and they design the different platforms they put together. I don't think people are tapped in to that degree of what they're experiencing.
Hmm.
They just think they're in on the latest word or the latest of what's going on in the world,
Hmm.
versus they're participating in a full-on designed, um, kind of algorithm that makes gossip, unhealthy word, a form of entertainment.
Hmm.
People flock to it every day in every way.
Yeah. And so what I'm wondering is it even real? Like, for, Nikki's on a rant right now, or whoever, for the week, and people that they previously collaborated with, or people that were previously, I know that relationships go sour all the time. Romantic, person, all kinds of relationships. So maybe some of these relationships really are going sour. But it's really hard for me to believe that some of these relationships that were supposed to be so solid with some of these people, now they're going to these lengths. And I'm wondering, are they getting paid to do this? Or is it real? Because if gossip and entertainment, if you can't go now and perform because nobody's buying tickets, or because we don't have that kind of environment, and you need to make money, is it that is it about that? Is all of this fake and people are just faking it? I can't tell. Some of this does seem not like it may not be real. Like, are these beefs real? I don't know. And I don't really want to get too vested in it anyway, because I have way more things I'm interested in. And I think us everyday people have a lot more bigger things we need to deal with. But I do think it's important to realize that this is a industry, and it's always been, but it's become dominant now because it's cheap. It's like reality show. It's cheap. You don't have to pay a lot for it. You might have had to pay a huge amounts in the past, like Jackie Harris. I saw her on a podcast talking about the difference between what you pay a reality star versus what you paid when you were on a set of a 227 or a show, and it's different. So these things are cheap labor, and they're able to fund things. So I think it's important for us to know that, because you got people everyday people getting really vested in it, thinking that it's real, when those people could be, as they say, laughing to the bank. I think we have oh, okay. So maybe not yet. I came across this page called Radiance Tally under the Don't Make Assumptions 6 Tips for the Third Agreement. And it was helpful information. Could we put that up? Avoid jumping to the worst case scenario, have fair judgment, ask questions, understand that we all think differently, express what you want, and communicate clearly. And have you ever just felt so much better? Like I remember one time at work, I had a colleague and we were close. We were like associates. And I said something, she used to come to me and vent a lot. And earlier that week, I just didn't feel like hearing it. And so I think that the way that I dealt with her hurt her feelings because she was used to being able to just let it rip and I would be patient to hear it. So I felt our relationship starting to feel rocky. And a few days in, it might have went on for about a week or so. And I heard her in from outside of my office say, "Oh, everybody's just changing around here." And I felt like part of that was directed to me. And so I approached her. She came in and I apologized because I felt like she was used to seeing something, used to having that, and I wasn't in the space for it. And we talked it out. And I felt so much better because authentically, it didn't feel right for me to have our relationship end that way. And man, I felt so much better. And so have you ever felt that like you were assuming something and maybe you thinking something about a relationship or something, you just got all these thoughts, you talk to the person and you find out a whole lot of stuff, or you haven't heard from someone in a while, you start thinking all kind of thoughts you didn't know. A bunch of things might have been going on with them, critical things, and they might not have just been in the space to share. So I love communicating, and I think it helps with this. Express what you want and communicate clearly. And we're not always the best communicators, as humans. And that can change because there's great tools out here. This book is one, but you can even get books or listen to TED Talks or even go through what's it called? Toastmasters. You can go through things. We don't have to struggle if you want to improve your communication skills. And it doesn't mean you got to turn into somebody else. It could be still you, your version of you, how you want to live, but you're just a better communicator. You don't make assumptions. You don't go around, spreading lies and things like that. So that's agreement number 3. And then agreement number 4 is always do your best. Under any circumstance, always do your best, no more and no less. And what the author says is that keep in mind that your best is not going to be the same moment to moment. Everything is alive, life is dynamic. When you wake up refreshed and energized in the morning, your best will be better than you were tired at night. So it's not like you're comparing your best today to yesterday when it may not be the right comparison. I think about sometimes, Brother Michael, who was an amazing musician. And I remember hearing, I think her name was Dr. Robin Smith. She was a psychologist, and I used to listen to her podcast on Oprah years ago. And she said drugs didn't kill Michael. she was like, he was chasing that fix, that thriller fix. And unfortunately, I don't know if he would have ever accepted the fact that thriller wasn't replicable, because it wasn't even just the fact that he peaked, it was the way the stars aligned for it. You know, that happens too sometimes. And it's hard for us as humans to recognize that. It's that by the time he was making other albums and records, there were other things that were changing about music, that he couldn't get another thriller if he made the most beautiful music ever, because it wasn't just about that. The best changes. The best is not always the same, but there can be a best. You know what I mean? It's how you're, what you're giving in that moment, in that time. So that principle is another one that I think deserves people's thoughts around, because we get stuck on a part of what the best is. Um, and there's a video that we have to share for that. It's on from Mindful Gains.
What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm talking about the 4 agreements. The final agreement: always do your best. Let's get right into it. Our best may vary based on if we're sick, if we're tired, sober-minded, well-rested. Our best efforts will always be dictated by where we're at in any particular moment, all right? So we really have to learn how to have grace with ourselves and just always try to do our best, no more, no less. When we try to do more than our best, we're overexerting ourselves. And when we overexert ourselves, we're not really even able to achieve our best because we're already tired. We're already worn out. At times, we may undershoot our best. We may not give it our all. We may not give it 100%. And we start judging ourselves. We start beating ourselves up. Our best efforts are always going to shift. That's just what it is. You know, you got that good night's rest, your efforts are probably going to feel like 110% because you rested up. But if you're sick, you coming off of COVID or something like that, you might not be able to be so intentional with your efforts because your body is not where you need it to be. So we have to learn how to just always aim for doing your best. That's all we can do. Always do your best without expecting something in return. We'll put forth effort and action, expecting to get back maybe the same effort, the same action, or expecting some type of reward for what we're doing. You know, when we can learn to just put forth the effort and action just from a place of being of service, being helpful to others, that's going to make life a lot easier because we're not so outcome oriented. We're just doing what we need to do intentionally without expecting some type of pat on the back from it. Whenever we're giving everything our best effort, we're being true to ourselves.
Yes, I really love that. I love that. When I first was working at U of R way back in like 2007, um, I used to do a lot of like develop wellness programs, and I would call the copy center to create flyers and posters. There was a man, he was an older, I believe, older Jewish man that worked there, and he would deliver the posters to me. The way that he would wrap the posters up and deliver them to me, not only were the posters well done, it felt like it was like it felt like from yesteryear. It was like a special touch. You know what I mean? Like the service was special. I miss that quality, that doing your best. And it was like a part of him. He dressed nice, and he would drop them off. We would have a polite, respectful conversation, and then he would go on his way. But it was just that quality that I think I would love to see come back again, because it makes life more elegant when we live and we give our best. And but it requires, as the gentleman was saying in the video, a mindfulness and really being in tune with where you are that day. So that is any comments out there?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. Doing
Okay.
your best can often, especially living in America, you doing your best because
Mhm.
America is so competitive.
Yeah.
Everyone feels like their best is the standard that Michael Jackson set with Thriller, and not doing what you can create and what you can put forth as an
Mhm.
authentic product as your best. So if you don't reach the heights of Thriller, or if you don't reach the heights of some other product that's put out there as the standard, then you didn't do your best.
Yeah.
So I like the way you broke it down, where the gentleman produced a great product. He took care in the package and handling of it, and he delivered it with a smile and with great customer service. And that was a example of his best.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think if we go back to things like that, the small things,
Yeah, exactly.
those things will make a difference. That reminds me of a flower shop not too far in my neighborhood, and the care that they take into wrapping a bouquet. You could spend 20, 40, or 400, but the
Hmm.
quality that you're going to get when you walk out of that flower shop for what you pay for,
Yeah.
and they're still around, even
Yeah.
though all the mom
Yeah.
and pops are being wiped out. So that just goes to show you that if you deliver a personal touch, then you deliver a personal best. It lasts over time.
Yes. Yes, I agree. And helping our younger people feel like it's worthwhile to play the long game, because giving your best is the long game. It takes a while for you to have a mastery or skill set of something that you can deliver. So that takes time. And then figuring out how to deliver it takes time. It's like this show I just started a few months ago, still working through trial and error, still building an audience. But when you do things, it's worthwhile to take the time to do it and not just expect, explosions. It's tough. We're in an instant gratification society, and we're getting a lot of dopamine hits um, these days with the socials. Every time you get a like or some feedback, it gives our brain that dopamine release. So when you don't get it, you crash. So you just have to be mindful that it's okay to play the long game and go for that quality. And doing your best over time is gonna stand the test of time. So those were the four agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take things personal. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. Several years ago or later, I'm not exactly sure. I was trying to find out. A fifth agreement came out. And I'm going to show, before we wrap and go to the next book, I'm just going to show us a video that breaks down this fifth agreement, which is be skeptical, but learn to listen. So, producer, can we play those videos?
Everything you believe about yourself is a lie. Most people know the 4 agreements, but the 5th one, this is where the mind shift happens. This book doesn't just challenge your beliefs, it makes you question reality itself. Let's dig in. Point 1, quick recap of the 4 agreements. Number 1 is be impeccable with your word, so say what you mean and only what you mean. Your words are magic. Number 2 is don't take anything personally. Absolutely nothing anyone else does is ever because of you. It's a result of their own perception and their own version of reality. Number 3 is don't make assumptions. Most assumptions are not truth anyway. They are fiction. So instead, communicate clearly and ask questions instead. And number 4, always, always, always do your best. Now our best is different from moment to moment, from day to day. My best right now is different from my best tomorrow. Your best right now is different from your best tomorrow, is different from your best last week. But if you know that in every given moment of your life you are doing your best, then you know, looking back and looking forward, that you will have and always will do your very best. And you can rely on that. Part 2 is the 5th agreement. This is where we flip the script a little bit. The 5th agreement is be skeptical, but learn to listen. In a world overflowing with opinions and noise and just half truth, if truth at all, this really is a secret weapon of a mind shift. Whenever a human talks, even if it's in your own head because you are a human, question if it's actually true. Listen and question it for self-awareness, not to be untrusting. Our perceptions of how people are not who they perceive themselves to be, just as their perceptions, other people's perceptions of us, are not how we perceive ourselves. The analogy he uses in the book is if you went to a movie that was from your perspective, your life, the story of you, it would be how you perceive yourself and all the people in your life. So it would be very familiar to you because it is the story of you. But if you took one of those characters, say your beloved or your child or your parent, and you went to a movie starring them, that person, it would be so radically different. You would not be the same person as you were in your movie because you are being seen through another person's eyes, another person's awareness, another person's perception.
I just, that was Elizabeth Butner, by the way. That was from her page, Elizabeth Butner. You can go on YouTube. And I thought that was a really powerful description. And I haven't read the 5th agreement yet, but I do want to. Have you noticed though, lately, in movies, and there's actually a book that is getting a lot of attention. It's called Audition. It was like a national book finalist and a Booker finalist, which is a big deal. And I heard that it does it in this book as well. But I just watched a series called The Girlfriend, where it was what the way that Donald Miguel is talking about perception and reality. It was about this girlfriend who, this guy who falls in love with a girl. He's got a very overbearing mother, and the mother doesn't trust the girl. And the girl has some stuff that goes on in her background. But the way that the series takes place is multiple points of view. So you're getting one episode would be through Cherry's lens, which was the girlfriend, and another who is perceiving herself to be innocent and loving of this guy. But then in another episode, you're getting the mother's view. So you're like, well, is she bad or not? Is the mother not right? And you can tell things are not appropriate, but I guess I'm noticing more and more that you're seeing series and shows in these multiple point of views that are showing that when you flip it and you put it through a lens of someone else, even if that person is still a central part of the life or the story, it changes the way it changes things. And that's what he's saying about the perception and reality, which is why we should question things. Don't be, it's not to say mistrusting, but just question it. And I keep thinking about my aunt Linda, who always says it's three sides to a story. Whenever there is a conflict, she would always say that. And I guess that's her version of this principle, which is, it changes things when it's through another person's lens. So I think that is really different. It's a different thing for me because a lot of the ways that I was programmed, my generation growing up, if you think about it, we got a lot of single stories, singular narratives about all sorts of stuff. Um, the way the media was usually, there was this is the message. It wasn't multiple ones like it is now. Um, if it's someone that was vilified, like I remember, you know, Robin Givens, and I like her body of work, but someone said one thing and everybody went with this perspective of her. I can name a bunch of examples. She just came to my mind where a singular narrative or singular concept about a person, good or bad, was spun and we went with it. Movies were through, that's the good guy, that's the bad guy. That was how it was. Now we're becoming more sophisticated in our humanity, where we're showing how it's multiple perceptions. So what do you think about that out there, producer? Any comments there?
Sure. When you were saying that, I was also thinking of the Juan Carlo Esposito series, Kaleidoscope.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also thinking of Game of Thrones. And now I was thinking of Game of Thrones, not the series. Now I think the series on television would have been that much better if they did more POVs. Because according to the series, at the end of the day, everybody committed their atrocities to the fall of the Seven Kingdoms. But in the book, they really do a great job showing the POV of each person and what they experienced about the fall of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah.
And and if anybody hasn't watched Kaleidoscope by Juan Carlo Esposito, do yourself a favor.
Yeah.
That's the brother from School Days.
Yeah.
He's very, very powerful performer, actor. Go do yourself a favor, watch Kaleidoscope, because it comes at you with so many POVs.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the series, you have a full scope of humanity of what all characters were doing and what all their aims, goals, and sacrifices were really all about. So you just can't say that's the good guy, that's the bad guy. He committed the murder, she committed the murder. It was about the total tapestry of what was going on with everyone. So really interesting.
Exactly. Yes. So if you're watching in the future, those two are good. Game of Thrones, which I still haven't gotten into yet, but I did see Kaleidoscope, and it was even cool because the episodes, instead of them being linear, because I can't say that word right now, instead of following it, episode 1, 2, 3, they did it by colors. And their view was pick a color and watch it because we're not doing this in a linear way. And I'm starting to see other artists and other art mediums doing that, which is kind of exciting. Okay, so that pretty much wraps this segment. If you want to see more of those videos, we're gonna, always link this episode uh, in my YouTube page and on the Real HD Network. So now, moving on to the next book that I read, The Universal Tone, bringing my story to light. It was Carlos Santana, and it was a national bestseller. It came out in 2014. It's a long book, 544 pages. I listened to it, and I really enjoyed listening to it. He's 78 years young now, a musician, songwriter, guitarist, Santana band leader, and philanthropist. I came across this article on Jukebox Spin that helps to like summarize it. 1966, a young guitar player named Carlos Santana filled in one night at Bill Graham's famous Fillmore West with an impromptu group of musicians, and the rest is history. And 3 years later, Santana and his band memorized the crowd at Woodstock and climbed to number 4. And he gets into all of this. I won't read the whole summary, but he sets the tone of the story, and that was a really great review. We're going to play a clip here uh, about the universal tone.
Carlos, is your image of the universal tone, is that what's lying beyond the ordinary? And where did you find it? Is it something you experienced? Is it something you dreamt about?
It's a frequency I discovered a very early age with my father's voice and his violin. And at that time, I was still living in Outlan, Jalisco, which was probably like 54, 53. But I could see back and forth the eyes of these people in this party. It was in the afternoon. But I could see women, men, and children just looking at my dad like he was ice cream. They just adored him. And when he started singing them songs, it was like, oh, Don Jose this and Don Jose that. And I was like, I said, man, I want me some of that. That's what I want and nothing else. But when I came to Tijuana, it became another sound within that principle. And it was the sound of Mahalia Jackson. You know, it was the sound of many, many things that I grew up listening to. And then I came to San Francisco because of the Consciousness Revolution and the Grateful Dead and all, you know, it's the same sound differently. It's the sound of a child yearning and crying to be hugged. So universal tone is a collective sound of humans wanting that God hug, because without God you get lonely and you get bored and you get confused. When God hugs you, this is why they say, hallelujah.
The music inside the music. We can take a breath and then slowly segue to our fourth film clip. Truly extraordinary, scintillating
So
Carlos
that
Santana guitar solo.
Yeah, so I guess it's one of those things where he's trying to put something into words that's hard to explain. But it had me thinking about when my children were younger and a song would come on. Like I remember one time my daughter, it was a Saturday, and I had this song from the Girl on Fire album, Alicia Keys, and it was called Listen to Your Heart. She was sitting there drawing, and I saw her write, Listen to Your Heart. I like this song because there was an energy in the song that just made her feel soothed. Like even 2 and 3 and 4 year olds, even little kids can feel it. So it's something universal. And I think that's what he was saying in there. I really, really enjoyed this book because I align with all of the areas that he kind of talked to are areas of deep interest for me. So the book is speaks of his life in three main buckets: his music, domestication, and spirituality. And it's not like I'm going to talk about music now, I'm going to talk about it's interwoven, but those are like the strong themes. And and then it's also those experiences and elements that are universal to all of humanity, which if you think about it, that's how his music is. So from the music, you get into his earlier influences. His father was a musician. He grew up um, in a country part of Mexico and then moved to Tijuana, him and his family. And his father was always on the roads and he provided for his family as a musician. And he would travel throughout Mexico. Um, and then Carlos also played the violin before switching to the guitar. And you hear, he told this story about how like he was young in Tijuana in the strip clubs playing music. And he learned a valuable lesson at a young age because he said he would see the woman in the strip club stripping. And then on Sunday, he would see them taking their kids to church. And for him, it wasn't about like a disrespect. For him, it was, oh, they were working because they had to do what they had to do to take care of their families. He just developed a different kind of respect for women and for work at a young age. You get into he talks about all his musical relationships, so many, the influences, like he said in that video, Mahalia Jackson, BB King. I can't even name them all. I learned so much. And then I found myself as he was talking about some of these, I'm going and I'm listening to BB King, and I'm going and I'm listening to Sly and the Family Stone. And I'm in this vibe now where I'm listening to all this like 60s music, Alice Coltrane, John Coltrane, Miles Davis. You hear a lot about Miles Davis was a huge influence for him, and they had a relationship. And, he got to San Francisco. He was able to just get there with his family and started the band. So you hear about that. And then had this, when Santana as a band formed, it was like from 68, it was an explosion quickly because he had a mentor in his life named Bill Graham. Well, yeah, I'll say a mentor, a sponsor, as they call him, because he opened doors up. That's the only reason why I'm calling him a sponsor. He didn't pay him or buy him anything, but he was running the Fillmore, which was a huge venue in San Francisco. And he put together Woodstock. And Santana got an opportunity, even though they were new, to play in Woodstock. But like he said in the book, he said the stars kind of aligned for them because Woodstock was crazy. Like they had to take helicopters and get people in and out of the area because it got so big. And something had them, Santana, get there a week before. So they were in Woodstock, New York already. So by the time the day of the festival came, they were there in this location and had the chance to perform earlier. He said, but let's say that didn't happen. Say they were traveling that day like some of the other bands. They could have missed their time because the promoters had to switch the times. And when it was time for him to perform, which he said he did high because he had some kind of, not really LSD, but some other kind of drug. He thought he had a lot of time to let it sit in, and then it was like, bam, no, it's go time. And they rocked it, and it changed the trajectory of his life. So that's why these things that happen in our life sometimes can't be planned. You know, you got to do your best, but that was the best, because that created, after that, they had just gotten a record deal, but it all sped things up, and then it, way led into way. And so you just hear so much about the music. And I didn't know anything about this Bill Graham, so I did more research on him. But this article that was in Capitol Theater said he was one of the most influential music promoters of all time. In some other clip, when I was researching, I heard that he was one of the first people, well, Carlos said the first, to like feed his artists. So he started to normalize things that are now extremely just par for the course when you're bringing artists into concerts and stuff. But he kind of started that, because he said before that, artists had to feed themselves. But he started creating these norms. So let's see here. I have another video to show regarding music. And this is a conversation that he was having with Cheryl Jennings.
Like you're a cat. Your music began with your lessons in Tijuana and has evolved over the years. It's so many different things. How would you describe it, if it's even possible?
Music is, for me, a delicious combination of melody, which is the female, and rhythm, which is the male. The bed don't matter. The bed could be classical music, hip hop, rock and roll, country and western. That's the bed. But it's always the melody and the rhythm. Even the lyrics are incidental sometimes. You know, unless it's a great, great writer like Bob Dylan or Pete Sears or, you know, the Beatles or Curtis Mayfield, Smokey Robinson.
Yeah.
But the main thing is in music for me is melody, honoring the melody. And that's all you remember though. When you walk away, you remember the melody. It's a delicious combination of melody and rhythm.
You have so many songs. Do you have a favorite of your own?
I like Samba Pati a lot.
I love that one. Yeah. So Carlos was saying he's really big into melody, because that was his way of differentiating himself as a guitar player, because he said that instead of focusing heavily on other like techniques, he focused on melody and really mastered that. So he got into his style at a young age. And then I also really have realized from listening to Santana music how really it's world music, and it's a fusion. So, later on, like there was all this ruckus about the Cowboy Carter album. Is it country? Is it? But when you're that big of a musician, and it doesn't even have to be the famous ones, because he wasn't always famous. They were, if you're listening and you love music, good music, they all were influencing to one another. Like they were playing Tite Puente, but they were also playing Afro-Cuban. They would be influenced by the gospel music. It was really a lot of fusion happening. And because it was so many bands, there was a culture of it. And that culture of artistry helped shape it. So the other thing I want to mention before I get to his next point is drugs were a big part of that time. So he talked about his use of drugs, which were mainly, he used cannabis, but he did try other drugs, but he decided not to continue with that. And part of why he got into a spiritual path was because he didn't want those things to have a chokehold on him, because it was starting to happen with a lot of the people in the 60s and 70s who were getting into heroin and cocaine and heavy drugs. And when Jimi Hendrix passed away, he said in the night of it, I guess you could hear the hotels flushing the bathrooms. You heard toilets flushing because everybody were getting scared because, of what happened when he overdosed. And it did. It took an impact on some of the people in the Santana bands over the years. So he really stayed away from it. But getting back to perception, what we talked about earlier, he gave a very compelling reason as to why certain plants and certain what would be considered drugs have helped creatives. And he got into how contained we are and how strained we can be, and it can lock you down. And a lot of these artists, when they took some of these drugs and or plants, they were able to be more free. So I noticed that he was not vilifying it. And that was something that was uncomfortable for me, but I had to listen to it because, once again, I come from an era where it was implanted in us. It's all bad, stay away from it. So now people are saying some different things. I'm not out here promoting it, but it was the lifestyle. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was the 60s, and it was hippies and Woodstock and all of that going on. So that influenced the type of artistry that we're still enjoying now. So it was really, really, really like fascinating. His next area that was a strong part was the domestication. Shamans use that term because I heard Don Miguel talk about it, but it's like family. He had brothers and sisters. He went through stuff with his mother. He went through stuff with his father. He eventually got married twice. So all of that is talked about. Like he attributes the ability to manifest one desires from his mother. You see it, you go after it. It's waiting for you. And like he talked about, I think this was when they were back in Tijuana, just not really even having a way to wash their clothes. Like they washed them, but they had to go through a lot. And he was like, no, I'm going to be able to get my mother a really nice washing machine one day. And he bought her a house. So yeah, he values family and went through a lot. He talked about with that. He was married to a woman named Deborah for years, and they had a beautiful union, and they had children. And over time, they separated. It wasn't anything heinous that happened. It sounded like they just grew apart. And there were things that Carlos had to really reflect with on that. But they had really a spiritual path too. I also read, I don't know if this is still going on, but there was this article in 2023, Carlos talks cannabis, music, and life, and he has a cannabis line. So I wanted to look into that a little bit more to find out. but if you're interested in the article, it's called Carlos Santana Talks Cannabis, Music, and Life. Self-discovery is spirit, self-deception is greed, and stupid values. I remember hearing in the book that he said he did not want his bad habits to be the death of him. He had seen some stuff early on, and he was like, I don't want anything, a relationship, an addiction, or anything to prevent me from being able to reach the heights and be a musician, because he loved that first and foremost. And then he got into his spiritual realm. It was a lot going on, like in the 60s and 70s. He was influenced by Christianity, and then it moved into this oneness consciousness, which is like more around meditation. He transitioned to become a vegetarian. I posted on my Facebook a fun fact that when I was listening to the story, he talked about how him and his wife Deborah, they started a restaurant in San Francisco, a very successful, was like the most successful vegetarian restaurant, because the person that was leading this spiritual movement felt like they needed to be entrepreneurs. So they started vegetarian restaurants on the East Coast and the West Coast, so that people could both eat it and have an income. But then he referenced this restaurant called Anam Brahm in Queens on Parsons Boulevard that we used to go to. I used to go there all the time, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't know that that was a place he went. And that was kind of cool, because these were in the early 2000s that I would go to these oneness restaurants that these individuals had. When he talked about I could talk all day about it. Alice Coltrane, she's a whole being that I'm getting into. The other day, I put her first album on, Trio Mastery. Am I saying it right? I probably am not, but I played that whole album and it was like a meditation. Her music is, and I was like, dang, why wasn't I exposed to her sooner? I don't know. For some reason, I wasn't put on to her music. And I'm like, wow, but now I am. So I'm listening to her. She was a harpist, an orchestra. She played piano. She's John Coltrane's wife. And then after he passed on, she was deeply spiritual. So she really got into the oneness movement, and a monastic trio. That's the first album. But if you want to hear some good music that's going to like uplift you, put her music on. So I didn't know about her as much, but I've been coming across people referencing her in different articles, and just jazz in itself, which it seems like it's declined as a popular medium. And I'm listening to it more. I put on John Coltrane. I think our spirit needs this kind of clean, powerful music right now. There's a lot of dark forces out there, and a lot of the stuff that's being pushed our way, it hasn't had the richness that some of this music has. So I want to encourage us to. I also think it's good to find music on your own instead of always letting an algorithm tell you what to listen to on TikTok, or find stuff, go to the record shops and things, and just let spirit guide you on what you're going to listen to, and talk to other people about that. And then, I saw this article about so lastly, huge philanthropy. So he started an organization, Malagra. They build schools. They do all kinds of work around the world to make life better. And Carlos remarried a woman named Cindy Blackman, who's dope. And I hope to see her in Vegas. She's a drummer. She used to be Lenny Kravitz's drummer, and he met her through music, and they have, a beautiful union. So I'm going to play this last video, which is a little clip about her, so you can find out more about her before we wrap.
That's part of why we're here, as we were talking about before. But it's just so exciting, you know?
How do you want to affect people?
I'll tell you what, when I was, I think, about 11, we moved from Ohio, where my family's from, and we went to Connecticut. And I had two best friends, one girl by the name of Kim, and one boy. This is when I first moved there. His name was Doug Campany, and Doug was deaf. But he used to, I think he loved being friends with me so much because I played drums. So he used to come down in my basement, and I would play, and he would dance because now he could finally feel the music. So for me, I was so happy watching him dance. And he would just get in front of my drums, and you could hear him making sounds as though he was singing, although he was mute too, so he couldn't, speak. But the effect on him was so incredible. I've never forgotten that, and I've never forgotten him. I don't know what ever became of him, because that's when I was 11, 12, 13 when we were friends. But that experience was just incredible. So if I can do that just to one person, I'm really pretty happy. And if I can do that to many, I'm overjoyed. My heart is just glowing.
That might be the origin story of Good Vibrations.
I think so.
It seems like she has a really dope energy based on that video and other. I also saw her on Questlove Supreme's video, his podcast. He interviewed her, and that was really a cool one to watch. So that was fun. That wraps today's episode and our series on National Hispanic Month. We are in celebration of the diversity of the, brown brethren. And, they're going through a lot right now with the immigration issues. But we, in our way, I wanted to celebrate them and show the various contributions that many people from the Hispanic community are making to America and to the world, and continue to recognize diversity during this time. So if you watch in the future, if you come across anything that you found to be interesting, please leave it in the chat. And I hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you back next week.